off the mark. Gather round sovereigns, we're navigating our pineal glands with Meeks, Kali, and Tootie Odin, reclaiming our native lands. We're off the mark.
Ahoy, hoy, and hello, hello. Welcome to episode 12 of Off the Mark. It's been quite a week, as everybody knows, I'm sure, in one way or another. Welcome to Off the Mark. Like, share, subscribe, go to your thing, do the thing, go to Patreon, do our thing, and then we'll see you there, man. We got a lot going on Patreon that you guys are missing out on that I kind of don't want you to miss out on. So, like, yeah.
A lot of action over there.
A lot of action over there, right?
It's happening.
How are you, my love?
Hello, Tootie. How's it going?
Going
Excited
well.
to be doing another cast.
Absolutely, me too. Yeah, it's great, by the way. Amazing.
Yeah, fun. Love it. Love it.
Okay, so today's episode, we're gonna do a Capitol recap. We're bringing you more information on what's gonna happen on the Capitol in the next 7 to 10 days. And just keep, at the end of this episode, we wanna bring you guys a little bit of preparedness because we need a lot of preparation mentally, spiritually, physically. That's not to suggest that you guys have to go out and start to do the whole G.I. Jane thing, but we got some things to discuss. It's gonna be a great episode. So let's start with a recap. Miss Kelly, do me a favor. Can you just let me know, just remind me what happened like in the last week? My brain is fried. I have all this other stuff I'm gonna bring in. So yeah, it's all you, if you don't mind, please.
Right. So what happened was New Year's 2021, hooray, 2020's over, and then happened for about 2 weeks. So ever since the storming of the Capitol on the 6th, there's been an incredible fallout from that over this week. A demand that all the rioters be brought to justice, calling for Trump to be held accountable, that he presents a clear and present danger, and a lot of criticism over how he's handled the insurrection and the domestic terrorist, and that that these are his specific supporters that he's sent out as troops into the nation. And yeah, it's been incredible. They closed his Twitter account, and he went to Parler. A bunch of people transitioned to Parler, and then they shut down Parler entirely, where they removed it from the Apple and the Google Play store, so you couldn't download it onto your phone. And then they just shut down the app entirely. So even if you did have it installed, now it just doesn't load, and the website doesn't load. So they're still fighting and struggling with all that. A lot of people have moved to Telegram now and have a lot of channels there, and that's been kind of a new target. That there's been a lot of criticism of all these radical extremists that, free thinkers have moved to that. They're everywhere.
You guys.
So it's wild. And in the handful of moments that President Trump has spoken over these as of today, as of the recording, has spoken, he's continued to denounce the violence, from what I've heard, in his own words from my ear holes as I'm hearing it, says to follow the law, and that we're a country of order and uniting, especially today, when he spoke. But he's equated this to a witch hunt. And it's interesting that a lot of people are considering anyone who's kind of associated with Trump, or those still has criticism of the election, is a domestic terrorist. So Tootie, what do you have for us? It's been just rapid fire all day today. It's been intense to keep up with.
It's been
the last several days.
It's been hard to sleep, I can tell you that much.
Right.
There's a lot of information constantly coming in. Whether it's not coming in from CNN, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm not exactly talking about that. So you might think I'm over exaggerating, but I'm not. There's a lot of things coming in sideways that the mainstream is not advertising right now. But like Miss Kelly was saying, Mr. Law and Order President is now currently being blamed for the Capitol coup attempt. You know what I mean? So it's quite it's funny, how the tides have turned. Do you remember when he said that thing? And it was this was a big deal on mainstream media when he said the calm before the storm. Do you remember when he said that?
Yeah. And they asked him, like, what do you mean by that? So you'll see.
I feel like this is it. This is the storm he's talking about. He took that picture, I think, 6 to 8 months ago. Maybe it was longer. It could have been even longer now.
Yeah, I can't even recall, but I remember it being prominent, like 6 months ago.
The prominent thing.
Yeah.
This is the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, Mr. President? What do you mean? What do you mean? And it was a big deal. He never answered them. He never answered them. He never gave them a real response. It was just like this cryptic thing that he said that, you know, a lot of people took as a joke. A lot of people took as crazy old Don, you know, and
such a character.
What have you? But this is very, very equivalent to a shit storm.
Right.
You know, that's what he was referring to. Maybe he meant a shit storm, because that's exactly what this is right now. You know, this guy went from Law and Order in the middle of summer and was condemned for it, and now became the president.
How dare you back the blue?
Right. I mean, and again, he's now the president of chaos, which doesn't make any sense to me. He's had over 600 rallies himself, absolutely 100% peaceful. There's been, I mean, there's never been issues of arrests or people in arms, or there's never been any of this anger or aggression at any of his rallies. These protests, which seem to be a little bit different, because there are contradictory crowds inside these protests, understandably. Everybody gets a voice. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, that needs to be displayed outright. Right. Everybody gets their own voice, and that should never change. What does need to change is the hypocrisy behind shutting people up that have a voice that's different than yours. That's not okay. That includes that includes the current leader of the United States. Speaking of him being the current leader of the United States, as of 01/13/2021, that being today, this president, Mr. Donald Trump, went up, had a vote in the House of Representatives, and he was impeached for the second time.
Big two, historic.
Historic. It's been a tough couple of years, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, geez, wow, who's not tired? So yes, he was impeached for the second time today. Aside from him being impeached, I mean, okay, so I just want to put this out there. There's no legal precedence for his impeachment, unfortunately. So whatever side you're on, it's not going anywhere. Once it hits the Senate, it will die, just like the first time. I wanted to do something because I did bring up the impeachment. That was a good segue, but hold on, let me do that. Dang. Now I gotta back up. Okay, so impeachment. Federal official commits a crime or acts improperly. That's the definition of impeachment. When a federal official commits a crime or acts improperly, if they do not resign, then they will probably be voted into impeachment. So that's what happened with Donald Trump today. That's what happened with Donald Trump during the Russia investigation, or I think it was after the Russia investigation. They found nothing wrong. The FBI had no proof of his collusion with Russia, and they were like, "Let's impeach him anyway." So they did. They went ahead and went through with it. It was approved without major contest, just like this time around. It was approved without major contest. I don't have the number specifically, but it was like something like 207 to 87, something in that majority. If I'm wrong, please by all means correct me if you care. But yeah, he was impeached as of today, 7 days outside of the Biden inauguration.
In exact a week.
Right, at like a week away from him being. What do you think? What is this? What is this? Why would they do that? Why would they impeach a man when he's just 1 week away from being gone in 4 years? Like, oh, and then everybody seems relieved. Oh, it's finally over. Bro, it's been 4 years. You guys can one more week respectively. Like,
and it's interesting how much criticism there's been about the storming of the Capitol, when for months and years, people have been planning protests at the White House. Around the election, they said they were going to drag him out, so there's, like you were saying, the hypocrisy of it. And it's interesting, you're right, that we're kind of on this cycle of Wednesdays, that the storming of the Capitol was on Wednesday the 6th, and then he's impeached a week later on the 13th, and then the inauguration is a week later on the 20th. So each of the planets, as we've mentioned, those astrological significance that politics and stuff follows, each day has a planet that rules over it. So Sunday, sun, Monday, moon, Tuesday is Mars, Wednesday is Mercury, Miraculous, Thursday is Jueves, Jupiter, Fridays, Viernes, Venus, and then Saturday is Saturn, of course. So we're on this Mercury cycle right now, which of course is the closest planet to the sun. It's the quickest. It represents communication. And yeah, it's also like very alchemical because it's like quicksilver. So it's an interesting like ingredient there. And it's interesting also that it's been a silencing that's happening right now. So it's been kind of like an attack on Mercury, an attack on free speech during these days. And a lot of people are intending over this week leading up to the 20th, and maybe that's why they're so like forceful about the impeachment right now, is that they want to kind of nip it in the bud of anybody that still has that like pro-Trump spirit or whatever that was planning to carry that through all the way up until the inauguration, that they're wanting to dampen that as much as possible, demonize him as much as possible. They've removed him from the state government website as a person. Like a week ago he was there and it said like the official end of his presidency. They ended it before the inauguration date. So again, they were like kicking him out. And now if you search the page, it just loads back to the homepage even. So they're kind of doing this wave to erase him from history almost, and only leave like this very particular demonic, like, or, you know, like villainous character of him.
Right. If you go to his Twitter page, it almost basically tells you this person does not exist. Like, no, this person does exist, you weirdo, you ghouls. How dare you word it that way? This person. It may say this account does not exist. I don't think it does, though. I think it straight up says this person does not exist.
There's no such thing.
I saw him. That was weird. It was just like like you said, they're trying to completely erase him from history, and it's not, like I said, like we have to understand it. Once we start to look into things historically and look into things by definition and look into things constitutionally, we can understand that his policies were as sound as possible. This is the no war president. You know, it's the things he has been doing in policy have been very presidential. The things he does in character, the things he does on camera are questionable. He doesn't speak logically. He has no filter. He's very human. It's not, we're not used to that. We're not used to seeing these people are facades. They're not exactly, they're not holding themselves. One, we don't hold them accountable because they don't hold themselves accountable. They're very pious, regardless of party. They're very pious. They have this idea that the law really is above them, and thank God that for a lot of them the law has caught up, and the law will eventually catch up to a lot of them in the very near future. But you know, that being said, like it's the hypocrisy that seems to circle this entire all of these entire movements, regardless where you come from, whether it's the Green Deal, there's hypocrisy in that, the BLM movement, Antifa, even the MAGA movement, there's hypocrisy in every single, all of them, if you want to look deep enough. So really, it has nothing. The idea that these fusing these movements together in violence right now doesn't seem to be that illogical or that distant from what reality really is, because it turns out that a lot of what's going on right now, as far as the Capitol is concerned, and as far as, I mean, there's been buildup to this from COVID to
exactly
to the police violence to, you know, all the injustices that are happening, or that people are believing that are happening. You know, whether we have information that is true or not, people believe in their hearts that these things are legit. So they're playing to our emotions and all of this more than anything, which is what we have to, myself included, I'm guilty of this more than anybody, and I've said it before, that we have to understand that facts trump our feelings and our emotions, and no pun intended there. Anyway, so back to facts. So we went ahead, we went through the definition of impeachment. As I said, it will go to the Senate. It will die in the Senate. But again, he's only 7 days away. It's going to die in the news. So it's not going to matter at this point. What matters now is he was impeached and we won. So
yeah, that they got that on the record, like a little red card right before the game finished.
Once it gets to the Senate, it's not going to go anywhere. You can look it up because, again, it's not going to be in the news when it happens. It's just, who cares? He has 7 days. So anyway,
and just piggybacking off of that,
yes.
I want to read something, a quote from Kamala Harris, and this is from a few months ago. So she said, "And once Trump's gone and we have regained our rightful place in the White House, look out if you supported him and endorsed his actions, because we'll be coming for you next. You will feel the vengeance of a nation. No stone will be left unturned as we seek you out in every corner of this great nation, for it is you who have betrayed us." Kamala Harris, June 18th, 2020. And yes, she really said this. So people are trying to present this Capitol incident as a singular, like, oh, look at how, MAGA and the Trump supporters have gone out of hand. And even after Trump's gone, after the 20th, they still pose a threat, and this hasn't come because of the Capitol. Like, they've been talking about this since June, and her and, AOC have been like targeting Trump supporters that we're going to search you out. We're going to, hold you accountable soon as they had the power again back in the White House. So you can see them like clawing and gnawing at the bit that they can't wait to get into the White House. And I'm not saying I support either candidate, but I'm just taking like at brass tacks what I'm seeing. And one person who's saying peace, like work together and all that, is being demonized and villainized, and then one is like doing it by any means necessary to get into the position of power. That seems suspicious to me, and like the temperature or whatever, the climate, I guess, on social media right now between people that even are supposed to supposedly be on the same side, like there's been just like this ricochet of division that's been happening. And yeah, this could be such an opportunity for unity, and it is really calling us to be like self-accountable and not that sense of holding people at their word. And it's interesting, like you said, you've been listening to like the congressional hearings and everything, and how you can sense like when people are like lying and they're doing their bit, or when their people are getting called out on stuff, and but that stuff isn't getting blasted on the news as much. All the moments when people are just speaking common sense and like, let's all be rational adults about all of this and call a spade, those get brushed under the rug for some reason.
Right. AOC has publicly said people have no choice but to violently riot. Wow. I violently riot. Like that almost sounds like she's inciting a violent riot.
Oh, no, but that was BLM.
Well,
that was justified.
So exactly, but that's my point. That's my point. Back to the
exactly, yeah.
Is and I know you understand. That's Nancy Pelosi. I have one right here. I just don't know why these aren't uprisings all over the. Oh, I'm sorry, my writing sucks. I just don't know why there aren't uprisings all over this country. Maybe there should be. What do you mean? Okay, so she said this before the Capitol, so like she was foreseeing the future. Okay, Simpsons predictions, watch it. She was, but my point is that this comment was made. These comments, these quotes were made by these people. I'm so happy you brought that one up with AOC, because I'm not a huge fan of this, but that's okay. When she first came into office, I was like, oh, dude, finally, sweet,
right.
And then it turns
out, oh wait, no, she doesn't speak for me.
She's a moron. She doesn't speak. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, and she's a hypocrite. And hypocrites are like they're the worst for me. I try. Look, everybody runs into hypocrisy every once in a while. Okay, I understand that. We're human, so we run into our own hypocrisy every once in a while. We recognize it and we fix it. That's what we do. She ain't fixing it, so she's annoying. Anyway, so I'm so happy you brought her up, because she's one of the front runners for these movements, and she's there's a lot of communism that comes out of her words, and I don't like that. It's very upsetting, and it's terrifying, because to have somebody be in leadership, and to have that idea in their head that they want to bring out into the world. The idea of making lists and making sure that people understand who their enemy is. No, man, I'm an American just like you are, lady. There is no lists. You don't silence my voice. I didn't silence yours. Nobody silenced yours. Hence you being in office where you are today. Thank you very much. That is equality, ladies and gentlemen, in this country. More than anything, she's an example of it, and they point that out themselves. How much that minorities in office is a huge example of how this country is great, and yet they sit there and they shit on it at the same time. You can't have it both ways.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Back to facts.
Oh, real quick, I want to go through a list of some of the other instances of hypocrisy.
Absolutely, please.
So this was
facts, by the way, these are still facts.
Right. So there was the 2018 Women's March occupying the Senate building. So that happened. AOC's protest inside Pelosi's office, which was led to 51 arrests. There was the Kavanaugh protesters that stormed the Supreme Court. There was also 2020 BLM attempted to siege the White House, and many officers were injured in that. And then there was the, of course, 100-day Portland federal building siege, Chaz. But those people were prompted as, being freedom fighters and applauded that they had no other choice but to take that action. They were backed into a corner. What are you going to do except for take over like a democracy?
What did you want them to do? They were sitting there, dude. They were bored. What did you want them to do? They were, come on.
Look at that.
You left them no choice. So now they're sitting there.
Their hands were tied.
Hey, and let me tell you this. Me and Miss Khalid, this is a story that I haven't approved by her, so if she doesn't get upset with me, we camped out on the City Hall lawn during Occupy LA. Yeah, we actually did that. The difference is we sat there and didn't have any idea, didn't even come into our minds to cause violence. Not one time did anybody think, let's burn down a building near this vicinity. Not once during Occupy LA did anything like that happen. This explosion of people thinking it's okay to burn down small businesses and this and that and the other, it came out of nowhere. I have no idea where it came from. It's not
to attack our fellow man. That's clearly inciting.
I understand eat the rich, which is why we were there for Occupy. I understand that. Corporations, monopolies do not belong in this country. We stand for this country. We've always stood for this country and the rights that we have as equals, regardless of race or gender. So that's neither here nor there. This is what this is us. This is why we're here now. This is what we fight for. The same exact thing. Liberties for all. Natural God-given rights.
Right. It's kind of our thing.
Exactly. So yeah, we did do the Occupy thing, but like I said, there was minimal incidents of riffraff where dudes were getting bricks and trying to break windows to loot. It didn't happen. They got arrested immediately. They didn't make it into the buildings. There was a bank nearby. I remember somebody trying to break into an ATM near the city hall off of Temple in LA, and it never came to fruition. These people were apprehended immediately for breaking the law, which, when you're sitting on the lawn peacefully protesting, we were not breaking the law. We had a lot of fun, and it was great to connect with other people and to see these drum circles and all
speakers, explaining different.
Right. Explaining the information, explaining why we were there. A lot of people making fun of us as they drove by. That was kind of the worst of it, really. Kind of the worst of it. But that's my point. Is we've seen the difference between being able to peacefully protest and still be a weirdo and camp out on the lawn and not take over somebody else's livelihood like a small business. There's a possibility to do both. And you want to know why? Because everybody, I don't know what happened, that this new age of technology, we're either very distracted where we don't give a shit about information anymore. I understand taking selfies. I take them all the time. I love taking selfies. They're the shit. But at the same time, still learn. That's what it's here for. We have this unlimited access of information. Please get that information into your heads, into your souls, because it's going to be valuable in the end. Right. That's the part where we got lost, is that we're so busy taking selfies at protests or whatever the deal is. we didn't have that back then, thank God. You know, I don't think we didn't have that.
We didn't have camera phones.
No, we didn't have any of that back then. And that wasn't even that long ago. That's how advanced psychology, just boom, like that.
Yeah.
So I understand
wow.
the action and how it's the blue light to the mosquito. I understand that. I get it, that we're so focused and involved into our phones. I falter into it as well. But still, that's not an excuse to not be informed and to understand that there's a whole different world out there, and there's a whole different history that they didn't teach us, that if we just make these we put this puzzle together, we can understand that the picture is much bigger than we even realize. And that's okay. Right. There's no need to panic about the picture being bigger. It's just an easier way for us to understand what the future may hold for us. That's great. That's a powerful thing to have. Knowledge is power.
I love that you brought that up, because we are kind of, as a society at large, going through this identity crisis where we're coming out of they've called it the fourth industrial age, the Great Reset, right? And we're coming out of like that Henry Ford era, which was very like cog and wheel and like piece by piece, and we're all kind of puzzles, and we were just taught to do our little like wheel part, and as long as you just keep spinning this way, then everything else will go, and everybody's doing their part. But we're realizing that we're more of like a permaculture where it's a connectedness, and we're much more like fluid and involved and influenced by each other than we previously thought. And like this year, or last year, I guess, of 2020 and COVID, like was a great example of that, of how interconnected and everything that we are. So I think we're like going through this process of realizing the permaculture of that, but they are trying to put it into a digital synthesis of this. And another thing that occurred to me while you're speaking is that you're right, that we keep trying to silence other people's voices, but just like when you're speaking to a child, like you raise your words, not your voice, like not the volume, like you don't start screaming, you explain things differently. Like we need to be communicating differently rather than like escalating the tension between the conversations that we're having. Like we need to raise our voice, not by silencing another's. We need to clarify what it is we are trying to say, what our needs are, what our truth is, right, rather than muddling it into all this like, mudslinging.
Right. You're right. You're right. And I'm at fault for this too, because my first reaction is, no, you're wrong. And I think that's
natural.
It's kind of natural. But you catch more bees with honey, and that's something that I think I need to learn on a personal level. I kind of tried my best to back away from all of it, just simply because I am not trying to argue with people, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to communicate with somebody and put information out there. And it turns out it's this podcast. This is the best way. It's the best way to actually filter real information with personal feelings at the same time, without being too anecdotal, because I'm sorry, anecdotes don't work as facts. So we can't really work on those if they're not very reliable. So I can't go always on my personal feelings, my personal emotions, my personal stories. It doesn't always work that way. And if I told you my personal story, it'd be incredible, and it'd be like, how the hell did she do it? But you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm not every American, and every American isn't accountable for me and my actions, and every American isn't accountable for me and my struggles. I am. We are all accountable for our own. That's the whole point. And we seem to have lost that. And that's where the hypocrisy lies in, is that we don't hold accountability until it's time to hold accountability to somebody else. Why? Why is it like that now? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like that. That was a rant. I apologize.
No, it's perfect and beautiful, and I'm just like kind of absorbing it. But you're
crying. So I wanted to bring something else up, if that's okay with you, Miss Kelly.
Yeah.
Can I go somewhere else?
Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
So I wanted to bring up the Insurrection Act of 1807. Kind of interesting, especially if you haven't heard of it. So the Insurrection Act, it provides the president with the authority to employ or deploy the active duty military against U.S. citizens during extraordinary circumstances such as civil unrest, which is what we just had last week, and or rebellion that threatens a state or its government. So this also suspends all other laws that generally prevent domestic deployment. So the Insurrection Act actually is very powerful. It's been used. It's not used often, and it's not advertised ever. So it's
It's
something
like a
that,
card in their deck.
right, a lot of people are very unfamiliar with it. The last time it was invoked was in the '92 riots, and that was by George Bush Sr. Ain't gonna do it. Ain't gonna do it, but he did it. So yeah, the Insurrection Act for the LA riots. Understandably so. There's really nothing. I legally there's no argument there. Another a side note of the Insurrection Act is if it's invoked, it can lead to a move towards martial law. I haven't looked into so hard into that part of it because that part of it does scare me, because the thing about martial law is the thing about any law, as we've seen historically, once we give our government permission to do something, they never ever take it back. They never say, oh, you know what, we changed our mind, you can have that back now.
You can do this again.
Again. So that's the thing about martial law. Now, I don't quote me on this because I didn't get to look too deep into it as far as history is concerned. But from what I'm told, not from what I'm told, from what I read, there's a 30-day window to readjust things and the government to readjust things and bring peace back into the country in order for martial law to be lifted. Martial law should be lifted after 30 days. This is what I'm reading. I don't know. Again, if anybody has better information than me, please let me know. I'm all in.
Yeah, please inform us in the comments.
Absolutely. So the only reason why I bring up the Insurrection Act is because I don't remember if we mentioned it already, but I think we did. We do have 20,000 troops, 20,000 troops in DC right now. Their airspace is compromised. Commercial aircraft cannot pass over certain parts of DC right now. There's drones all over the place. There's radar footage of military aircraft actually all over the United States, just kind of floating around. They are expecting something big to happen. Whether it be in DC or state capitals. As I'm sure you've heard on any news source, there are protests and riots being projected in the news for the 20th, predicted in the news for the 20th. So
in the days preceding even. So like this whole week upcoming basically is kind of
right. So that being said, we do have, we may have a rough week or two ahead of us. We don't know that for sure. I don't know that for sure, but no one can ever deny that being prepared is the best thing for it. So be it by blackouts, power grids, maybe even violence outside of doors, which I personally don't expect even in Long Beach. I don't expect any personal violence. I do live in a blue state, but that, that's kind of besides the point, I guess at this point. But anyway, so we just kind of want to end the show on preparedness. But I kind of want Ms. Kelly to kind of take the head on that one, because I know she knows a little bit more about being able to be prepared than me. I do have a list of things that we can actually have with us on hand for the next 2 weeks to 30 days or whatever. But yeah, I want you to go ahead and like take the helm on this one, because
thank you. Yeah. So like Tudy was saying, we don't want to, we're not trying to like fear tactic or scare tactic anybody or cause more alarm when people are already like sensitive and overwhelmed, like you said, like we're tired. Oh my goodness, another thing. But just in general in life, we should always, be mindful to be prepared and better safe than sorry and all of those kinds of things. And incidentally, these upcoming weeks are more vulnerable. And there have been blackouts and power outages. We discussed the ones in Pakistan and Italy, but they've been happening throughout the US recently as well. So even if completely unrelated to politics and stuff, you still want to be prepared for any type of emergency. So some types of things to be mindful of are the different types of scenarios that you could be in. So of course, like FEMA, the official FEMA website has a lot of instructions on how to prepare specifically for different types of disasters. But you want to be mindful of if it's a bug in or bug out type of situation. So bug out is where you can no longer be in your home or secure place and you have to be prepared to leave for an extended period of time and not be able to return. So like, for instance, if there was a flood or a fire or violence in your area, Some instances might require a bug in, where, for instance, if there's martial law and there's more restrictions that would limit you being able to go to the grocery store and about your business in a normal way, then you would want to have more of your provisions already prepared for you in your space and home for that type of scenario. So basically, just like all of our like hierarchy of needs, you want to consider all of those things. So of course, our initial needs are food, water, and shelter. So if your home isn't going to be a safe place, then you want to have another location that you could potentially go to if for whatever reason you did have to evacuate your home. If you were in an instance like a blackout where you're not necessarily evacuating perhaps, but you need to be able to be in your home without certain provisions that you would normally have, you want to be stocked and provided for that. So again, you want to think of food and water, having enough of that stored for you and accessible for however many people there are in your house. The durations of emergency things obviously can vary. Sometimes it's a 48 to 72 hour type of scenario. Sometimes you need to be prepared for 2 weeks, a month, 3 months. So it can kind of vary. So, start small to start with what you can. You don't want to get overwhelmed at not having a bunker right this second, but anything that you can do is, any tool is going to be more helpful than not having that at the time. So yeah, you want to be mindful of your water and food, heating and light. So any alternate electricity systems and heating systems that you could have, emergency lighting and heating. You also want to have fire safety type tools, especially if you're going to be needing to cook your food and stuff like that. And other things, then you're not going to, if you didn't have your microwave or oven or those kinds of things. You also want to be, as far as water, you want to be mindful of storing water in containers that are useful for that. There's a variety. Some are like more baggish, so they can store differently. Some are like designed where you could like fill it in your tub. Glass jars kind of last longer and don't leach the same way as plastics. But then again, in an emergency situation, as far as wanting to like be able to store more, or especially if you have to travel with it, you don't want as much weight or, for it to be as fragile in your package. So you just want to kind of like play out some different scenarios and get your kit, your supplies accordingly. As far as food, you want to be mindful of storing food. So you want to keep it so that it can have the longest shelf life possible. So if you're getting some of those like emergency preparedness type kits, a lot of them are like vacuum sealed and things like that, and are already prepared with 5, 10, 20-year shelf lives. But if you're purchasing your own grains or things like that, then you want to get like those 5-gallon buckets or things that you can be mindful to keep it from getting exposed to too much air exposure or moisture, or containers that could be compromised or get leached into or things like that, damaged, so that you can protect your food as much as possible. You also might want to be considering raising plants and animals. So again, there's only so much that you might be able to, depending on where you're at. We're in a more urban setting, so we're in a different scenario than, perhaps some people that live on a farm in the Midwest. But even so, you want to look at possibly raising plants and animals, having a food garden, having some essentials on hand that you could supply for yourself, just in case there was any compromise to the food supply chain, or if you weren't able to go to the grocery store for a period of time. It's also good to start looking into being able to forage wild edibles and start being more familiar with plant identification, and even knowing there's a lot of food that's just planted along the sidewalks that you could possibly survive on, and we're just walking right by it and don't even know. So you don't want to just go eating any old herb, of course, because they each have their different properties. Some can be poisonous and all those things. So you definitely want to be knowledgeable about what is available to you, but in a survival situation, being able to have that skill set is vital. You also might want to start practicing like catching wild animals, whatever that means for you, whether fishing or otherwise. And then whatever unconventional food sources. So, whatever that means to you, but just think outside the box, depending on what the circumstance of the scenarios are. Then another aspect is safety. So given a high volatile scenario like that, depending, especially if you are located in some of these concentrated cities like in DC or things like that, or sometimes on the outskirts, like, you know, it's a kind of a spectrum, because like they do have so much military and armed forces there. So it could make it so it's more like organized and peaceful, or it could, you know, mean that there's going to be more of a clash and you know, potential danger there. So you just want to be mindful of your safety there. If there were a blackout or something, there could potentially be, you know, burglars or things like that. So you just want to be mindful of your locks, that your house is secure, all of those things, whatever, just securing your whatever your safe place is. And also being mindful of preparing children to have things for them, so that in the event of a blackout, that you have forms of entertainment if you're not able to turn on a video, or because they're already going to be, you know, if their rhythm is interrupted, and starkly so, and they suddenly don't have their usual conveniences, you want to make sure whatever comforts you can provide for them, that you're already equipped to do so, and that you know, things that you can do without electricity, you know, like crayons and books and games and all those kinds of things. And also find ways to keep them engaged, to have skill sets that they could potentially be, yeah, just prepare themselves. So, you know, obviously you want to be age appropriate. You don't want to scare children or put them in, especially after they've already gone through for this year, but just in an empowering type of way of, here's a new thing that we know how to do now, or kind of like a camping adventure, like, oh, this is how, like, we can start a fire. How cool. This is how we tie knots. It's just fun. We're figuring things out. And then a few other things, because aside from, you know, the potential civil unrest or blackouts or things like that, there of course is still always a potential for natural disaster. So, you know, we had the fires a couple months back in California, and there's been, you know, occasional tsunami and hurricane warnings and those. So also you want to just be mindful of whatever weather conditions are relevant to your area, and having the appropriate clothing and gear and all of those types of things. So we're keeping it vague. We, you know, that we don't want to go too long in this cast on this particular template. We are wanting to put more of this type of information on our platforms, and we're building out our website in addition to our Patreon to be able to provide yeah, more content and information in these areas to outline. But Tootie is thank you for what you want to share with that.
I love it. I love it. All good. That's amazing information, especially if we get to stay put and stay in our homes and stay grounded. Like I said, the information sits in our phones at our fingertips while we have the ability to do so. Let's get it going. At the same time, stay calm. There's no reason to panic. Who gives a crap? Like I said, it's just the internet. It's just phones. It's just, you know, I understand, because even I understand it's gonna take some weird getting used to, but panicking would never be the answer. So again, this is just all about preparedness, no matter what, whether be it civil unrest, be it an earthquake, be it a tornado, if you're listening from out of states, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, honestly, like it's honestly just disaster preparedness. Disaster, the definition is very vague. There's many ways disaster can happen. So it's all preparedness. And if there's no better time to be prepared for something like this, it'd be now. On top of what Ms. Kelly said, for immediate response things, canned goods, easy open canned goods if need be, first aid kit, obviously, a CB or ham radio if you have it handy. A lot of people have them just sitting around. This would be a good time to kind of bring those out and get them recharged or whatever you need to do. If not, maybe look into one, because you never know. You never know when you may need one. You may need to get in contact with information with the EBS or maybe even other people. I don't know how they work exactly. I've never used one. We've never been in survival mode, but it's always good to be prepared. So I myself do not have one. I'm going to look into it. So again, without being that hypocrisy was a big thing, big theme of the cast, there's a lot of things that I need to look into myself in order to be prepared. So there's a lot of work that we do have ahead of us, but it's always good to be prepared. And I love that we get to do this together. Full tank of gas is another one.
Right.
Again, that's almost an impossibility. My car right now does not sit on a full tank of gas, so it's not like it's not like it's just if you understand, or if you, like I said, the theme of the cast is to stay vigilant. So once you stay vigilant, if you have a gut feeling, if you have something that, hey, just in case I need to prepare, even if it makes me feel silly in the morning. I do it all the time, no matter what. You know,
at least I had it. Yeah.
At least I had it, because if you don't have it, that's a problem. That's when panic sets in. And again, this is to avoid the panic. I think
a good tip with the gas thing is just to kind of retrain your brain that, like, instead of seeing the bottom as empty, just think of the halfway mark as empty. So just imagine in your mind that, like, that's the new out. I'm going to be out of gas if I'm there. I don't want to dip below that.
Amazing. I love that.
So that way you at least have a half a tank at all times.
Right. That's a great tip. I love that. Last one would be the obvious again, candles, flashlights, extra batteries at all times. Candles being a big one. A flint, an old school flint. They're easy to get a hold of. They're very cheap. They work. I use it all the time for work. And number 6 would be masks and sanitizers, simply because we don't know what's going to be out there. We have no idea what lies in our future. We have no idea who's going to do what to retaliate against the American people themselves. So masks and sanitizers, simply not because of specific viruses or anything, simply because of everything. You know, sanitizers are a handy thing to help you stay cleansed in a given moment without water at access. So yeah, those are just basic ones. Again, this is not to incite panic. This is not for any other reason, but for all of us to be prepared. I do have information on prayer chains that will be happening within the next week or so. If anybody wants information on those, I can pass that along to you during comments. You can message us on the YouTube, find us specifically. I'm on my Twitter at 2DO My Hero. Miss Kelly's, we'll plug hers eventually, but you can DM us if you want to, like, privately let us know that you want to join a giant national prayer chain in regards to us being able to hopefully pray the country out of the violence that's happening and that's been happening for the last few months, and just kind of get us to stay calm and to stay informed and to stay vigilant, you know, whether we have the peace of a higher power or not. You know, not everybody has to believe in a higher power to understand peace. It's possible to achieve, so long as we understand tolerance and we have proper information. So that being said, with the protests that are happening, I want to put out, I myself define myself as a patriot. I fight for my country as best as I can. I was never in the military. I never had the chance to enlist. I tried to enlist in the Navy and I completely failed. And that was because I suck at math. But I have all respect to every single person in the military. You guys are the glue to this country more than anybody. But to patriots that are not in the military who insist that this fight is worth fighting for, I agree. That being said, do not go out on the 20th and sit there and think that things are going to end peaceful for you. That's the intention of the protests and these riots that will happen on the 20th. They're not the answer. They're not the thing that make America great again, if that's the term you want to use, because if that's what you're trying to do, it's not going to work that way. So, and I think a lot of people do know that. So keep the peace, stay calm. That's it. Stay home. You know, and this is probably one of the first times in the cast I've actually said to do that. But I encourage and implore everybody to just stay home and stay calm and again, pray for our country. If you don't pray, meditate for our country. Put positive vibes out there, regardless of what side you stand on. Positive vibes do work. You know what I mean? They're not going to work whether you know. They're not going to not work regardless of what side you're on. It's all about intention. It's all about good. It's all about where you're coming from on the inside. So when you're a good human and you put out good human vibes, those do count for something. So do what you got to do. You know, stay on the right side, regardless of what side you come from. Stay tolerant, have answers, and have questions, and make sure you get the answers to those questions. Ms. Kelly, in closing, do you have anything to add, my love?
No, I loved everything that you just said. And yeah, just to continue to remind people that that kind of is the goal of this time, of those powers that be, you know, that order out of chaos, you know, and that even that key word, that like echo and mantra of chaos that they're trying to build here, and that our invitation now is to be the opposite of that, to be the calm, to be the peace, that we are uniting, and that if you find someone that disagrees with you, like find that common ground, like realize, okay, there's a hurt here, rather than like making there be someone's wrong or bad, or that something isn't. Just realize this is where this person's at, this is where I'm at, where are both our needs, kind of like echoing what we said in our first cast. And that yeah, our calm truly is the glue and gold of what's going to get us through. And the most important thing in any emergency is to stay calm. That's the calmest person is the most powerful person in any emergency situation. So the more prepared that you are, the more calm that you can be, the more that mindful that you are, the more that you there's no need to put yourself in dangerous situations. And we need to recognize that you know, we have these keywords of patriots and wanting to save America. And it's interesting because we can kind of be saying the same thing and then not be on the same page necessarily. So just to realize that just because to be mindful of your crowd and to help keep each other in check, in that sense of like, don't let it like escalate. Like if people start batting against each other, like let's diffuse it. There's no reason to like be cannon fodder, you know, to the cause. So if they anticipate, just like they did on the 6th, they anticipate this opportunity of the 20th to have a clash, to have chaos, and to, you know, punish the citizens in America and whoever, you know, they put at fault for it at the end of it. So, you know, our battlefront truly is in the American dream, in being able to have our home, being able to have our family, being able to have our freedom. So being able to stay home and feel empowered and safe and provided for in that is the best like thing that you could do, in contrast to, in protest to what's happening right now. We're not going to find it by fighting each other and battling each other. It's not on the soil, our battle. It's in our minds, and it's in our hearts. It's in the legalese that we're contracting ourselves into by not fighting for truth and vigilance in the law. We have to hold our lawmakers accountable to be to the letter of the Constitution.
Right. Beautiful. Absolutely.
Sorry, I know I rambled. I went on my rant.
Ramble. That was perfect. That was absolutely wonderful. And it's the entire goal of what we're doing here on the cast. And it was absolutely structurally perfect to every other episode that we've had on here. So thank you so much. That was an amazing wrap up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching, for taking the time, for always taking the time to support. We appreciate all of it. The Simpsons episode got great feedback already. We've only put it up. It hasn't even been 24 hours. And it's just, I think it's—
Thank you, everyone. So excited.
Thank you so much. Please get this one out there, you know, and get the ones about the Capitol, get them out, you know, because we do not want anybody out there on the street that doesn't deserve or need to be out on the street. People on the street are completely 100% misinformed and or have ulterior motives to completely destroy this country on purpose, and that's not okay. It's not okay with me, shouldn't be okay with you, especially if you have children. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again. We appreciate your help. Miss Kelly, thank you so much for all of your effort, all of your hard work. I love you so much.
Thank you, Judy, for all that you do.
Okay. All right, you
So
guys.
excited to do this with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Same. Thank you guys so much. We love you guys. Stay vigilant, stay powerful, and keep the peace.